Good afternoon, everybody. And Dzień dobry, is it halfway right or totally wrong? My Polish is really pretty not existent, but my grandfather was originated in Poland, so there's my name coming from. I would like to spend the next half hour, or maybe 45 minutes together with you, with a big topic, apps for Africa, positive tech, apps for Africa. When I was preparing my talk here, I was wondering, okay, what is a topic I could bring here that interests you, is technically enough, but still as a reflection on the positive tech side. And while I make up my minds, I thought, okay, what is positive tech for me personally? And then finally, what came up to me is positive tech is tech that has a positive impact to mankind. And not only to a few people, but really to mankind on a larger scale. So basically the big question that I'm always asking myself, and I think it is something that is associated here, is every hour that I invest in working, what does it reflect on? What is the result of this hour invested? And I think that is something everybody should at least once in a while reflect on, and really asking yourself, okay, what did I do, and what is really the effect on mankind here? It's not about getting famous, getting rich, or making your boss really rich and happy. It's more like, what is the positive impact here? So maybe I would like the first part of this conversation here to show you a little bit a showcase of a project, what I think that has a strong positive effect on mankind and is very heavily tech-related. And later on in the second part, really jump a bit deeper on the tech challenges that we faced when working in an African context. So maybe let's get started. We can. What you see here is basically, I think, a pretty well-known famous image. It's from the NASA, it's from satellite interpolated data, and what you see in the middle is the dark continent, Africa. And I think everybody knows there's not much electricity there, it's dark, but still, it's not only a challenge, it's not only a problem, it's a big chance as well. So if you go down from the birds level, or even from the satellite level into the street level, that's how it really looks like on the ground if it's not dark. Basically, it's resembling the total lack of infrastructure. You have poor roads, you have no electricity, you have no public services, you have no governmental services, or very, very little at least. There's very little government at all. There's a little police, very little, everything that you might know in the, let's say, memories or like in everyday's life, that is not there. But still people are living there, and they're not all poor, they're not starving. It's not like the typical image here from Africa with the small children with the big bellies. That's really improved a lot over the last years. You have the social development goals for Africa in the last 10 years. We reduced the amount of people starving by, I think, 50 to 60% already, or having hunger. So that is something that is really on a good path. But still, you're still lacking the infrastructure. And the first idea would say, okay, we just copy all the receipts we had here in Europe, in the US, and copy them all over to Africa and say, okay, what worked here can work here as well. But I think that is something we should really ask ourselves again. And if you look closer to it, you see that new technologies are rising or just mixed together, and they solve problems that have been there, and they solve it in a much better way than we did it here. So I think in a couple of years, we might be in a situation that these developments leapfrog back to us. But maybe let's get into one showcase here. What happened in the last, let's say, 10, 15 years? Basically, there are three big points that have changed that came up with the project we started in 2011. First of all, the prices of solar panels dropped tremendously. I think from more than 99% since 1970 to around about, I wrote down 60 cents per watt peak. For the engineers here, you know it. It's even less now, it's like 42 cents. I got the latest figures from Shenzhen. So even now they're still tremendously dropping. That makes solar energy really, really affordable, especially in areas with a high radiation level. Secondly, we had in the 2000s, from 2005 on especially, we had a great surge of mobile penetration. So like there was no landline connection in Africa. There is still very little landline connection. There is one big cable going along the coast, especially it was made after the soccer championship, and that connects basically all the countries, but there is no landline in between the countries, between the regions, and especially not in rural areas. So what happened, they just raised millions or hundred thousands of cellular towers all over Africa. It was a great business. It took up heavy speed, so they just put a generator, a mobile phone tower, just standard infrastructure from, I don't know, Huawei or whoever, Ericsson, provides these, and then immediately they covered almost the whole of Sub-Saharan Africa in a couple of years. And together with this coverage, the phone penetration skyrocketed. So basically almost every person, or at least one in each household has a mobile phone. And basically most of them still have a typical one, the older ones, you know, the feature phones, the ones that are not known as smartphones. And the basic reason for that is not necessarily affordability, but most important that you have to recharge these phones every day. And where there's no electricity, you can't recharge a smartphone. And you don't go 20 kilometers for recharging a phone every day, or buy a car battery or whatever. So that is a challenge for smartphone penetration, but where electricity is, smartphone penetration goes up tremendously. And the third one was the so-called mobile money revolution in East Africa. Basically, it's nothing more than, I think the older one here knows still the old USSD menus on the feature phones, you know, where you had to put a star and a few of numbers and then the hashtag, and then they came up an interactive menu on the old phones, on the old first mobile phones in the 90s. Anybody knows it, USSD? Okay, cool. I'm not totally alone here. But basically, it's nothing more than using USSD to transfer airtime from one phone to the other, and then later on to cash it in and cash it out. And small agents sitting on each corner in Africa, you have people sitting around and taking money and handing money out against airtime. So what people immediately could do, they got the financial inclusion. So they were included in the digital transfer of money. And it wasn't there before. So you can pay almost everything, even in the most rural areas in Kenya and Tanzania and Rwanda, you can pay everything with your mobile phone. It's really much easier than you could do it here in Europe. It's not safe. I wouldn't trust it. I wouldn't trust the technology here, but it really opened the way for millions of people to be included in the financial streams of the world. And putting all these three things together, brought us to the idea to set up a solution, or just to bring up one answer to the big challenge of electricity in rural areas. So basically we combined a car battery, this kind of car battery, a lead-based battery with a controller. This controller includes a SIM card and a GSM modem, and different sizes of panels, all different sizes, and a certain amount of appliances to be attached to the system. And then we decided to go down to Tanzania in late 2011, install the first 50 systems, and sell it to the customers, to end customers, on a 3 years installment plan. So basically what we did, we offered them, you can take the solar system, and you don't pay more than you pay right now for petrol, for batteries, and for candles. And basically that was a pretty big success. So from that on, Mobisol started to set up these systems in East Africa. Maybe just a short one. That's how it looks like. We have like three big offices right now in East Africa, like 700 people working in this distribution, maintenance, and basically sales companies over there, and they're really electrifying household by household by household. One system is around about, if you finance it over 3 years, around about $800, just to get some figures here, and it serves the needs for a typical rural Tanzanian or Kenyan or Rwandan household. And the people can pay it off within 3 years. How do we make people pay it off in 3 years? That's quite simple. There's a SIM card inside the device, and by the SIM card we are able to remotely, on the one hand, technically surveil the system, so basically update firmware, make sure that the system is working properly, do remote maintenance. We do it quite extensively, because if you send a technician to somebody living in the lake zone area in Tanzania, it takes maybe 2 days until he just arrives there. So really happy if you have any chances to remotely solve any kind of problem, and I think we are like 70 to 80% of the problems that arise we can solve remotely, 20% we have to go there. And last but not least, the SIM card is used as well to switch off the system in case the customer does not pay. So basically, all the payments are done by mobile money by the customers, and each payment is unlocking the system for a certain period of time. It's called PAYG, or pay-as-you-go. It's a pretty well-known term right now in Sub-Saharan Africa and East Africa, that whenever you buy something, there's a PAYG module included, if it's somehow electrical, and you just pay by use. And this switch on, switch off technology basically enabled us to keep down our operational overhead, because giving out credits in a rural African context will give you a lot of technical and management and whatever overhead. And only the technology to switch on, switch off really encouraged our customers to pay down their systems on an agreed payment plan. Maybe one last figure here is what we didn't think before. When we started the whole thing, we were just about giving light and giving phone charging to our customers, but we realized quickly that most of our customers, or like 40% here, start creating additional income streams with these systems. So basically, normally, typical African, Sub-Saharan African household has a lot of income streams. It's not one job where you get the money from, but two jobs, if you have like two earners in the family. But it's more like you earn a little bit by farming, you earn a little bit by repairing somebody's motorbike, then you rent out your bicycle to somebody, and still you make some money by shaving somebody's hair. So it just mixes up the income streams, and they are very unpredictable once in a while, and a lot of our customers immediately started, when they got electricity, to create their own income streams. So what they did, they just took their neighbors' phones and charged it for money. They took their mobile lanterns, charged it for money. They took their car batteries, charged it for money. So what we did afterwards is we just collected the most successful of these ideas, and then we created appliances that supported these business cases and sold them as business out of the box. So basically we sold these, you see it on the picture, a Mobi charger we call it. It's just a device that is able to charge 10 phones in parallel. And each phone charge is around worth 10 cents, round about euro cents. So they earn a quite significant amount of money with that if they do it for a lot of neighbors. Same with shaving machines, hair shavers. You can make a sort of business out of it. And then there were some other appliances coming up. For instance, projectors. People made village cinemas, by just having a projector and a solar home system. So they made up their own cinemas, or they powered their bars, they powered their little shops. They were able to extend the opening hours. Because if you imagine, if you live in a rural area without electricity, it means from 6 to 6 in the equatorial region, it's dark. It's totally dark. You can't do anything. It's not comparable to like rural areas we would have here in Europe, because without electricity, it's really only the day that you can use. Maybe long story short, it's easier to just show you a little 2 minutes video, and then hopefully afterwards I don't have to explain much anymore. This maybe illustrates a little bit the meaning that I had with what I said, impact. So there's really an impact we brought to the lives of Bystand today. It's around about 80,000 households, and that reflects into 400,000 people around about in the last 5 years, and most of them in the last 2 years, because there's some kind of exponential growth. What you see here is, I showed you the image in the beginning, the NASA image from 2012, and now there are newer images available, and they were combined together by Esri, and it shows the blue dots show where the light was more significant than it was in 2012, and the violet ones show where it's less. So basically what you see here, it's a quite majority of blue dots in the East African sector, especially in the area around Nairobi and Kilimanjaro and Rwanda and the coastal region of Tanzania. So everywhere where companies like Mobisol started to really bring technology to relieve people's life on the ground. And it's basically these enterprises, it's not only Mobisol, there are a couple of companies doing it. I think right now we reached like just almost 1 million solar home systems. The off-grid electrification reached 1 million solar home systems in 2016. It is not maybe as famous as the Tesla Powerwall, but the effect or the impact on everybody's life on the ground is much more significant. Maybe let's turn a bit over to the more technical side of the story here. Basically, what you see here is the data that is basically collected from our systems and then aggregated and used to make sure that the basic services are running. So currently, we're able to maintain a technical uptime rate of more than 99.9% of our systems by providing updates, by providing maintenance, by providing already in-ahead prediction of better charging algorithms and things like that. So we use quite a lot of big data analytics here, although it does not look like, because the systems itself looks quite tidy and quite low-tech, but it's all aggregated together and then run against. So what we were able to do was we were able to, by analyzing the usage patterns, we were able to break it down to 10 greater kind of user profiles, and then for these 10 kind of user profiles, we are able to really offer the perfect matching size of panel, battery, and controller. Because basically we are not able to sell anything if the people cannot afford it, and so we always try to not oversell people. So it's really a cost constraint that we have on the ground. So people are not able to afford $500 device at a once-off payment, but they're able to pay 50 cents a day or $1 a day because they would have to pay it for energy anyway. So as better as it fits to their needs, as more easy it is to use. And therefore we need a high use of energy. We have like around about 30 people in Berlin sitting there, analyzing data and making software. Going to software part, what we have learned in the last years is if you go to Africa, you really have to think mobile first, but not mobile first in the meaning here that it has to be looking good on a mobile phone, but mobile first in the meaning that there will be most likely coming nothing else. So it will be mobile and maybe a tablet. But the likeliness that there somebody will come up with a notebook or with a desktop PC is not very likely. So people start their first interaction with an electronic device is most likely as a smartphone. Or is a feature phone first, and then there's a smartphone. So that is a pro on that is that you can pick people up there, so they don't have to override the used habits that they have when using, I don't know, a desktop PC or Windows or Linux or Mac or whatever. So you can pick them up already, and they are much more open to any kind of a technical approach you would give there. But this comes with a lot of downsides as well. You see this picture here, it's a very old Android AT&T. I don't think it was imported from the US to Tanzania, and it's quite broken down. And what you face there as well is a huge fragmentation of devices. So basically, this is the install base of our internal application. So basically, we are even able to control it somehow, who uses it. But you see, it's almost impossible to really make sure what people install on which devices. And I think a lot of these devices you have never heard before. There are a few more known names there. Maybe it's a Huawei, HTC and whatever, but most of them are Infinix, General Mobile, Tecno. Tecno is a very, very big brand in East Africa. I'm not sure if anybody heard about Tecno before, but they are as popular as Samsung here in Europe. They have a huge flagship stores. They have a lot of advertisement. Everybody runs around with Tecno. And basically, they are the typical standard Android phone and labeled in different things. But there's a very interesting initiative from Google. It's called Android One. I'm not sure if anybody heard about it. If there's any Android developer here around. And this initiative is basically aiming at providing good hardware at reasonable cost, especially for developing countries. So they provide always the latest software updates instantly, and the hardware is at least decent enough that you can sell it, because the problem with all the fragmented devices here, what you see, is that they live not more than 1, 2, 3, or 4 months. So they are just there, and you can buy it, and a month later they are gone already. So there's no software support, there's no hardware support, there's nothing. So they just appear and they diminish again. That's why you see within a couple of months, even if you ask people really install only on known devices, it's fragmented like crazy. Then maybe I would jump in a few things like what if you're interested in developing applications for Africa, because as I said, there's no technology around there, and that is why making apps for Africa has a huge impact on the ground, because you can solve a lot of problems that you cannot solve here. What you have here, I mean, if you look through the app stores or the Google Play Store, I think 10, 20, 30% of all the apps are basically some kind of hipster lifestyle convenience apps. It's a bit like getting some food a bit faster, doing a bit things more convenient, don't worry about planning something because it's planned for you. All these things that makes your life easier, but they normally don't really solve a lot of problems. I mean, not real problems, not real challenges on the ground. If you go to Africa, you can solve real problems. You can solve problems about medical healthcare. You can talk about, I don't know, infrastructure. You can really leapfrog infrastructure. It's a small example, like Uber. Uber is available, I think Uber is available here in Warsaw, and it's available in a lot of American and European countries. Basically, it's a replacement for taxi. It's a bit more convenient, maybe, way for getting a cab. In Africa, it's a bit different. If you call a Uber in Nairobi, I just did it a couple of weeks ago, you're pretty safe that you don't get robbed, because first of all, you don't need any cash. Second of all, you don't have to negotiate with a driver, and you know the driver beforehand. So that makes cab driving in Nairobi much more safe. So it's really solving a real problem for people, and on the one hand for the cab drivers, because they get more customers. On the other hand, for people especially using this. Although I'm not a big fan of Uber here as well, but in this context it works. Secondly, I was talking to a small company in Kigali. It's called Easy Lift, and what they do is they just rate motorbike drivers, because there's a motorbike taxi is very common in Kigali to get around, but these guys normally drive like crazy. So this app is normally programmed that it analyzes the driving style of these people. So if they drive too fast, if they drive too abrupt, if they don't pick up the customers right or drop them right or something, all these things, they get minus points, and after a certain barrier, they just drop out of the service. They can't pick up any new customers anymore, or they go to a training. And all these combined makes it much more safe to pick a cab and a motorbike in Kigali and to drive around. And I think there's a few things, if you just drop a few ideas here, that people come up if they talk about technology in Africa, because that is something where if you invest, an hour of your brain, you get much more out of it. And that is something I would like to plant here, invest your brain in a proper way. Maybe one little anecdote here as well. We have been piloting last year a drone delivery network in East Africa. You might think, okay, why drones in Africa? They don't even have cars, and exactly that's the reason. They don't even have good roads, they don't even have cars. They have cars, but the roads are really bad. So if a drone network, like Amazon is trying to do, or DHL is trying to do here in Europe, works in Europe, it will for sure work in Africa, because transportation is extremely expensive. And the roads are so bad that it's very unlikely that the transportation is really coming there where you send it without being damaged. So if drones work here, they will work in Africa for sure. That is something maybe where I see, okay, think about what you can transfer and what not. Maybe a few rules if you really jump into making applications for African customers. That might be business applications, what I think is the biggest market, or end consumer applications as well. First of all, font size matters, and it's not because they can't read smaller ones, but normally the problem is you have the same amount of people living in Africa with eye problems as we have in Europe, but you have maybe only one person of opticians, is it the right word in English? The guys who make you the glasses? You only have like one person around. In rural areas, you have no one at all. So you have a lot of people who can't see right, but they have no way to get glasses. So if you think about this, you really have to make really big letters on your application. It doesn't look nice, but it will not work without. And the same with any kind of handouts you have, paperwork. You really have to make big font sizes just to make sure that most of your recipients or your target group can really read it. Second, image size matters. If you see these two pictures of my beautiful face here, it's left one is a PNG, 2 to 9 kilobytes, and the right one is a WebP, only 9 kilobytes. It's obviously in a worse quality. You can see it, but it's still recognizable that it's me and that they are somehow related to pictures. If you operate in rural areas there, it's very likely that the network quality drops tremendously from place to place. So normally you have network everywhere, but the quality is is quite shaky. So it might be, if you want to transfer anything that is somehow visual, you should really think about how can I make it in the background, how can I make it asynchronously, how can I make it in small packages. You just really get deep in the TCP IP stack, try to make the packages full, not waste any packages, because you know you're happy if they arrive the recipient, and try to go with standard tools that are available on Android. Maybe I forgot to drop that Android is like the 100% market share in East Africa, at least. There are some iOS devices there for the richer ones, but I think the people you would like to affect, if you are going for positive tech here, are basically all on Android. They're in Windows. I think nobody knows it, that there is an operating system called Windows. Same with Mac. But you know, WebP is already integrated in Android as a Google format, and the same as with WebM for videos. So if you go like this, really think twice what you can do, not to make it only look nice, work nice, and look smoothly on a Wi-Fi or 3G conditions, but how does it look like on a very shaky GPRS, or even I think GPRS is the worst one, edge connection. And last but not least, I would like to give a warm word on empathy. Empathy is more just not as a soft value, but as a really objective value. You really think, okay, I have an idea, and I think it would work in Africa. I can help people. And I think a lot of projects were made like this. There's a famous project. It's about a cook stove, a solar cook stove. You put it in the sun, and it boils the water, and people don't have to don't have to burn charcoal anymore. The problem is clear. Charcoal costs a lot of money and makes a lot of pollution. And the solution sounds pretty reasonable, but then bringing it into practice, they produced, I think, a couple of thousand of these cook stoves, brought it to Africa, and realized nobody uses it. Everybody took it as say thank you, but they never use it because they don't want to cook outside. I mean, it's a cultural matter, not cooking outside. It's not, people don't want to change their habits that much just because they feel inferior here. So don't treat people as they would be inferior, that they need help. You know, try to understand, okay, what exactly they need, what is a deal for them, because as long as you can convince them it's a deal for them, it's much easier that they accept what you offer to them, instead of coming around as a charity. And that's why empathy matters. Go there and watch what is the problem, and watch how would they tackle the problem, and see if you can piggyback on this existing solution, or maybe find a solution that is at least at the same eye level with the recipient there. I think that's basically I'm run through here. I have the 30 minutes planned. I'm already sharply at the 30 minutes, so we have a few minutes left for questions afterwards. So I'd say thank you, and I would leave it with the words that impact matters, and that's something I would leave as a message to everybody here. And yeah, if you have more questions, I'm very happy to answer, and even afterwards, I'm happy to talk to anybody about more technical stuff or more the general stuff. Thank you.
Hi, I'm not sure if I have picked this one up correctly, but you have mentioned some Google initiative that's supposed to be bring some decent level of the Android infrastructure to keep the, what was the name again?
This is a Google initiative. It's called Android One.
Android One.
One, like the number.
Like number one. Okay.
Yes.
So this is currently maintained. Do you know?
It is currently maintained. Right now we have a phone. It's called General Mobile. I never heard the brand before, but it's a quite decent Android phone. It's like $80-90, around about retail price, and it runs Android 7. It's very decent phone. We use it internally.
Right. Okay. And then are there any like organizations that like gather together, because there is a lot of those, but they don't. Sometimes it's lost in space, and you simply show us the difference, right? And this is hard. The hardest thing is this step in between, rather than transporting weapons instead of doing this, like, right?
I didn't.
I mean, is there any way, for example, someone would like to care more, do some apps, and how to like know, for example, about this cooking outside, how to know what is actually the need to
totally right. I think that's the most difficult question to answer. Like, you have an idea how to solve a problem
without getting on site, of course, because this is the easiest idea, but not everyone can afford, and no one has the possibility.
But maybe there's one way to start with. There's a lot of, really hubs and incubators starting in East Africa, for instance, West Africa as well, lately in the last years. And it's easy to connect to these incubators and really get in talk and get in touch with people over there and see, okay, what is their experience? Get their ideas on a digital way without traveling there. Everything else, I really recommend traveling to Africa. I mean, that's definitely worth the biggest travel you can do.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Okay.
Hi. I've been wondering if do you have any hints on how to get to know the problems of Africa? Because I'm very interested in finding a niche in software development, and as you already said, we are all full in Europe and States with the apps. There's plenty much everything we need. It's hard to do something new, but I think there's something there in Africa. But we have no idea. And is there any other way than taking 3 months off and living in some godforsaken village in Africa, finding it out for yourself? Or maybe there is some other way, reading some materials. I don't know. Do you recommend anything?
I think the biggest recommendation would be traveling there, just to say like this, because you don't need 3 months in a remote village. You need 2 days, even in a non-rural area, and you see a lot of things where you would say normally with your experience, with your background, oh, that can be solved better with an engineering background. I really talk about positive tech, and I strongly believe that tech can have or should have a positive impact. And if you look with open eyes into the problem and say, okay, I could offer a solution here, and then not just push the solution there, but talk to the people and see, okay, how would they receive it? What is their horizon here? And then I think it's really going straight forward, and it doesn't take you much time. You can combine it with a great holiday on the ocean if you ever go out of a resort. I think that's important. Take a little time. If you feel like coming to Tanzania, drop me a note. I can easily accommodate you over there.
Thank you.
Any more? Okay, here.
Hi, first of all, thank you. I think that what you've done is amazing. So I kind of wanted to ask something on the same level. Mostly, how did you decide that this is the direction you wanted to go in Africa? Were you there already? Were there local partners? What kind of research did you do on the ground?
Good question. Me personally, I had nothing to do with Africa except some holiday trips I did in Southern Africa before. So I like the continent, I like the people, and I saw that there are a lot of challenges around. But like the founding team of Mobisol, our main founder, CEO, he basically did a trip with a taxi, a solar-driven taxi in 2009, I think, 2010, around the world. And so he saw a lot of challenges and problems, and he thought, okay, I'm an engineer, I might have a solution to this. And then we brought all the things together, little pieces, and we found a few markets where we said, okay, we can start with that, and we found some money, and then we started right away. It was not a big in-depth analysis, but it was more like a try and go thing. And then we realized, okay, if we bring up tech here and bring more and more tech, and we can even much better. We can go in the very rural and the very remote areas, but you cannot do if you don't have tech. I can elaborate later on that in detail if anybody's interested, what really is our tech stack here.
Okay, 2 things. One is whether it's Google Play where the apps are distributed, and second is what language should be a target. Is it English, or maybe it's just some more like graphic without any language and text? What do you propose?
Yeah, that's good questions. First of all, Google Play is not that widely known. It's rather better to use some Chinese app stores if you want to distribute your apps. Instead of, or MTN, some mobile operators app stores, or just try to get it around. We use basically for internal applications, we use Hockey app. I think some of you might know it as a way to control your applications and get a lot of bug reports as well. Because maybe I forgot to mention that the level, the hardware and the software level of the device is really, really bad. It's low, very low level. So you never know what you can expect. You cannot expect any API levels, I think above 5 or so. And second, so Google Play can work once in a while for customer apps, but it's better to really distribute with a lot of other sources. And the Chinese app stores are not a bad choice here. Secondly, the second question was about... Sorry? Yes, language, yeah, the even a more interesting one. And basically you have like two two bigger international languages spoken. In West Africa, you have French, and in East Africa, we have English, and Southern Africa as well. But there's still a lot of people that only speak their own language. It might be in East Africa, especially Kiswahili, or some variation of it, like in Rwanda, you have Kinyarwanda. The problem is that even these people speak the language, they can't read it. So as more graphical you can be, as more likely it is that more people can interact with your software. So really try to be less, word verbose as possible, or least word verbose as possible. But if you have to choose English first or French, and then go on the local languages. And take care, because there's a little trap here. Kinyarwanda, the one spoken in Rwanda, is about 3 times the size of English. So if you make space for like English, think about Kinyarwanda, it's significantly larger. So every word is significantly longer.
Okay, my question is about startups that are from Africa, because you are from Berlin. But I wonder whether there are lots of people in Africa with entrepreneurship mindset.
Can you bring the mic a bit higher? Thanks.
Yeah, okay. I wonder whether there are lots of startups originating in Africa, and how they manage, how they get the money, and whether there is some interesting projects made by them, because you are from Berlin, yeah, and probably there are a lot of startups from, let's say, Western world trying to do something in Africa, but I wonder whether Africans are doing something that makes their life better, and whether they can get some revenue or some investors. How the startup scene, let's say, looks in Africa.
Yeah. So, yeah. There's a very fast-growing and evolving startup scene, and I can only talk very much about East Africa. West Africa, have been that often, but I'm very well connected in the startup scene in Nairobi and Kigali and Dar es Salaam, the big cities in the east of Africa, and especially Nairobi. I think it's called Savannah Valley right now. So I think it's one of the biggest hotspots for startups all over the world right now, even compared to the Western world. And a lot of money is going there right now. So like I know Rocket Internet, a big Berlin-based company. They have a dependency over there, and they brought all these delivery services to Africa as well. But they're really funding local companies, searching to solve local problems. And I think it will be one of the most interesting startup scenes in the future, because they will find completely new solutions to problems we thought we have solved already, and we don't think about it anymore. And then in a couple of years, I'm pretty sure a lot of these solutions will come back to us. I mean, off-grid, I'm really convinced that we will have off-grid here in Europe again as well. We will cut our power lines because they're much too expensive. And off-grid is a much easier way to connect your home with, and it's much cheaper. And a lot of solutions that are currently tested and incubated in Africa will come back to Europe. Mobile money, I think, is one of the first, although it's maybe not the most challenging one. But a lot of other things, transportation, and a lot of things will be invented in the future in Africa and will come back to us, because we are quite a bit saturated and think we know the solution. But I think we don't.
Any last question? Okay.
Thanks. So it looks like your company is doing amazing work in Tanzania, in East Africa. But what about people trust? Are there many companies that are abusing Africans' trust? So are they, because I suppose if anyone spots that they can make money easily, they will do that. So are there many companies which are just focused on the revenue, not on positive change?
Yeah, totally right. I think especially Africa, there people are very careful, because they got swamped with a lot of garbage over the last years, especially from China. There was a typical thing. The good things come to Europe and to America. The middle stuff goes to Asia, and the stuff nobody wants anymore goes to Africa. And it's still, the mindset is over there, still in China, to send really bad stuff over to Africa, and people are really disappointed, because there's no way to claim warranty. There's no history and like maintaining a relationship with the customer, especially in rural Africa. So that is like coming on top of this. So you buy some crap, and then you don't even get serviced on that, and then you still have to pay some significant amount of money, because transportation is very expensive. So the markup costs are high, and that is why it really takes a long time to build up trust. We do it basically by offering full-time warranty. We offer 3 to 5 years warranty to our systems, and even servicing afterwards against fees. And that creates a trust that is necessary to really do so. So you have a lot of, the marketing is completely different in Africa. If you want to be successful, you have to go below the line. That means you're not doing big radio campaigns, you're not doing big TV shows. That will not work. You have to really convince people below the line in marketing campaigns. So really get the trust of the chiefs, get the trust of people that they convince other people to buy your system. So like 50% of our systems is basically sold on recommendation from already existing clients. And that is a big chance, because you can destroy trust easily, and building up trust really takes a long time. But I think that's a positive thing here as well, to really have a good alternative around.
Okay, thank you, Stefan. Thank you for all questions. I think this is at the end of the session. I would like to remind everybody that there is an after party in Harenda Club at 7 p.m. Take your badges, because you can exchange your points gained in IDEA Mixer to free drinks. If you can't go, you can transfer your points in the IDEA Mixer stand, and I think that's all. So enjoy the conference.
Thank you very much for your attention.